What's up, nerds? It's 10:30. It's the OG GM coming at you live from Site B, and here the 4th day of January 2023. And we've got the relaxing picture of the Shire here. Why? Because we're about to enter to territory that might upset people, so I want to show something relaxing before we get on it. Just a reminder, this is a monetized video, so you will see commercials, might possibly. If you don't like ads on your YouTube, that's why. And it's time once again to ask, why is this a thing, as we spin the wheel of irrelevance and come back up to the politics of tabletop role-playing games. Now, I could address the whole Troll Lords games thing, but other people far smarter than me have already done it. I'll just put links to their videos. I could address the whole Lamentations of the Flame Princess thing. Except other people smarter than me have already done it. Links down below. I could address the PBS thing, because that seems to be the hot topic of the day. PBS's revisionistic look at the history of our game, and this false assumption that for the past 48 years, the tabletop role-playing game hobby has been completely secular, completely not open to anybody who didn't, fit into a certain mold. Hundreds and millions of gamers all across the world, hundreds of millions of games being played all across the world at any given time for the past 48, but not one of those games was open and inclusive. There's this large group of people out there who supposedly claim they never felt welcome. They never saw themselves. The game did not include them. But now they do feel welcome and inclusive, and the game represents them, which, of course, is completely and utterly BS. So I could address the PBS thing, because it is a very hot topic right now, and has placed PBS in a very bad light, because the article is basically filled with lies, misinformation, and revisionist history. And it makes outrageous defamatory claims about Gygax and people like myself. Again, playing if you played D&D in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, you were a racist, which of course is not true. And the only game that was being played was D&D all across the world, and the only people playing D&D were affluent white men. Again, completely not true. This article completely somehow manages to avoid topics like Vampire the Masquerade, GURPS, cyberpunk, the fact that gaming is all over the world, the fact that people in China, Japan, Asia, South America, Canada, the space station, all play games, and that there are other games besides D&D. And at no point in history is there any actual factual documentation that justifies these accusations. So I don't know why, out of nowhere, PBS decided to jump on the D&D bandwagon, the inclusivity bandwagon, this late in the game, when we're reaching pretty much the end of the lifespan of 5e, and we've finally kind of gotten past that. So many people who were trying to rattle that cage have moved on. Even the patron saint, Jeannie D. Jeannie D has not been heard of for a while. Jeannie D has moved on to other topics. A mass exodus of Dungeons & Dragons YouTubers are moving past, don't really want to talk about this anymore. People have grown up. They've said, you know what, this whole little inclusion thing, it's done, it's over. It was never a thing to begin with. Let's move on. But out of nowhere, PBS decides to step up and make this article. Now, I could talk about this article because it does sort of run hand in hand to my personal history at the hobby, but I've talked about this topic ad nauseum, and I don't really see a reason to bring it up when Grim Jim and people smarter than me have already brought it up. My personal take on the hobby is I've been playing since the 70s. I have played all over the world. I have played dozens of different games. I have met hundreds of people. I have sat at a gaming table with an Academy Award-winning actor, a multi-million-dollar CEO of a major company, a porn star, a homeless person, a father of 3, World Martial Arts Hall of Fame member, and a bunch of just average Joes on one person than another. Every race, creed, color, religion, physical shape, sexual gender, sexual preference, whatever, has always been welcome and played at the table. Never once have I experienced this until recently. And the only time I feel unwelcome at the gaming table is by these people who are making these statements that PBS, for some reason, decided to jump on this grenade now. See, I know other people have already taken the article apart. I don't need to take the article apart. Other people have done it, and I can just post links. What I want to take apart is why now? Why now? And why PBS? This is so out of your wheelhouse. Considering it's a topic that's never, ever, ever graced the cover of PBS. Never. Where was the Sesame Street episode about D&D? So my question is, why? And why would you attack the history of the hobby, attack the people who are playing other games, attack the OSR, go for this cliche soapbox when the soapbox can be so easily kicked down? It has already been proven time and time again, statistically, that these accusations about the hobby are completely untrue. So, yeah. Anybody who's still waving this flag is not doing it because they actually feel this. They're doing it because they want to be represented. They want to look important. Oh, yeah, I support this because, yeah, it'll make me look appropriate. The rest of the industry has moved on. So let's talk about instead, as we spin the wheel of irrelevance to the politics of gaming, the mass exodus of tabletop role-playing game commentators who are saying, you know what, I'm done with 5e. I'm done with Wizards of the Coast. And we can look at the top of the list, Jeannie D. She's kind of just fallen off the earth. Professor Dungeon Master has said, you know what, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Ben from Questy Beast has said, you know what, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Nerd Immersion has said, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Let's talk about other topics besides this inclusion thing, this Wizards of the Coast thing. 5e is, D&D is dead, long live D&D. And D&D is out there, but it's not being done by Wizards of the Coast. It's not being represented by Wizards of the Coast. It's not being supported by Wizards of the Coast. People want to play tabletop role-playing games. They don't want to play whatever this thing that Wizards of the Coast is going to make is. Wizards of the Coast is becoming their own worst enemy. And, even PBS, of course, while missing the mark, does mention all the steps something we've talked about ad nauseum now, all the steps Wizards of the Coast has made to appease this audience and to address these issues and how it hasn't made a difference. And we can bring up the race species thing, change this because it's racist. Okay, we changed it. Well, we're still not happy. It's still racist. At that point in time, there's nothing Wizards of the Coast can say or do that is going to change this situation. These people are going to attack them, no matter what. Because that's what these people need to do. I mean, it keeps them relevant. It gets them clicks. It gets them algorithms. It gets their name out there. They can continue to this attack against the game ad nauseum because there's always going to be at least one person out there who says, yeah, I do feel attacked by D&D. I am triggered. D&D does not include me. Of course, again, statistically, categorically, universally proven to be untrue. And we have this mass exodus now of commentators who are saying, you know what, I don't really want to cover this anymore. But I think what they're really saying is, you know what, I'm not going to talk about 1D&D. Once it's all said and done, I don't think there's going to be a lot of news worth talking about 1D&D. I think that's more likely. I think, people are still going to talk about, 5e because 5e is not going away. I know part of the scare campaign that Wizards of the Coast is running right now is we're taking 5E away, we're taking 4E away, we're taking 3E away, we're taking 2E away, we're taking 1E away, we're taking your toys away. Okay, that is the fear mongering that they're putting into the 1D&D thing. And like with the thing with the money, cryptocurrency thing, we're protecting you. We're creating the new D20 system that only we can support and only you can make product for, that we approve of, because we're protecting you by instituting this new autocracy over 1D&D. And what the almost universally, the tabletop role-playing game commentators who aren't, Wizards of the Coast shills are saying, yeah, you can do whatever you want. It's 100% not true. You can't enforce it. Third parties are still going to make 5e product. You can't do anything about it. And we're just not going to talk about 1D&D come 2024 when it was announced as 6th edition. So as somebody who is abashedly a Wizards of the Coast shill and a Wizards Hasbro stockholder, will I continue to comment on 1D&D? Yes, I will. Until it is finally made, I will follow the playtest and I will make fun of it. And I will continue to talk about Wizards of the Coast announcements in the way I have. Because what Wizards of the Coast does influences the rest of the gaming community. They're the disease. The rest of the gaming world is the cure. We're responding with strength, with numbers, with passion, with love for the hobby, and going, okay, it's enough. We're not helping anybody by attacking each other. What we need to do is all get together and just go, screw you, Wizards of the Coast. We're done. So yes, the OGGM will still talk about 1D&D/6th edition until the day it comes out. And then, no, I'll just go back to talking about the other stuff. I'll talk about the 5e stuff. I'll talk about gaming news. I'll talk about all the companies that are coming up and to compete with 1D&D. I'll talk about the inevitable complaints about 1D&D because we know it's going to happen. I'll talk about the inevitable backlash to 6e and the D&D Beyond, and how the house of cards that is Wizards of the Coast is going to fall apart. And I'll talk about how Hasbro is going to respond to the fact that Wizards of the Coast is probably going to crash and burn come 2024. I mean, they've already got on the Wizards of the Coast calendar penciled in June 2027, D&D 6X, which is probably a video game, but it could also be, because they said so, that come 2027, Wizards, June, Hasbro's going to go, we've got something in the back just in case you royally screw up, because at the end of the day, we don't really need you, Wizards of the Coast, to make D&D. In fact, we don't even need to make product at all, because the license is out there, and we still make money off the license. So really, we could just make it an open source public domain that we get a percentage of, and then we wouldn't have to deal with this nonsense that you placed us in anyways. So I am predicting, and I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, this is what the future of Wizards of the Coast Hasbro has planned between 2023 and 2027. It's put up or shut up. And I'm going to predict in regards to the tabletop role-playing game community and the mass exodus of individuals who are saying, I'm not going to talk about D&D anymore. What they're really saying is, I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to talk about 6 anymore. I'm going to talk about other subjects. And let me just remind everybody to ignore the fear-mongering that Wizards of the Coast is perpetrating in regards to 5e going away. And you can't make stuff for 5e anymore when this new OGL opens up. Yes, you can. Wizards of the Coast cannot stop you because U.S. copyright laws trump anything Wizards of the Coast says about D&D. And once the 1D&D SRD is made public, no matter what the OGL 1.10 says, technically you could make product using the new 6E SRD if you really wanted to. And all you'd have to do is, instead of saying approved for use with 6th edition Dungeons and Dragons, technically you could just put a system agnostic, approved for use with the most popular role-playing game in the world, or a system agnostic fantasy product, and you could circumvent the fist that Wizards of the Coast is trying to push down on the future of 6th edition. So 6th edition comes out sometime in 2024. Between today and then, there's going to be a lot of news that we're going to talk about. Most of it's going to be boiling down to why, Wizards of the Coast, you're only making things worse. And what is the rest of the industry doing that's positive in response to that? So I'm not going to comment on the PBS thing, because it's already been commented on. Anything I would say now would be superfluous because people have already said it. And it's a topic I've already covered to death. The lack of proof that people have not, been welcome at the gaming table that's just bullshit, and there's no reason to address it. I am curious why. Why now? This is so far in the outfield for PBS. This is nowhere near their wheelhouse, okay? Other than, I guess, their token demographic plays games, or it's D&D is of some historical importance. But I mean, was there a need to talk about the lack of inclusion in entertainment for PBS to address, and then somebody just decided, hey, let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons because it's a token hot topic right now? So that's what I don't understand, the logic behind why PBS would do this now. And of course, the rapid response has been, you don't know what you're talking about, PBS. So yeah, I'll just post links. I don't need to talk about the Troll Lord Games thing because people smarter than me have talked about it already. I don't need to talk about the Lamentations of the Flame Princess thing because people smarter than me have talked about it already. I don't need to talk about the PBS thing because people smarter than me have talked about it already. But I can talk about the exodus of tabletop role-playing game commentators saying, we're not going to talk about 6E. We're not going to support 6E. Which is either really good for me if I decide to continue talking about 6E in 2024, because it means I'll be the only source of talking about 2024 D&D in a, not ridiculous manner. And people go, well, I still want to know what Wizards of the Coast is doing, so I'll listen to the OG GM because at least he's funny occasionally and he's got that cute cat. Or it'll be horrible for me because people will begin going, hey, dude, you're still talking about Wizards of the Coast and I don't want to support you, and I'm unsubscribing. I'm hoping it's a good thing, because, hey, if Wizards of the Coast does something newsworthy in 2028, and I'm still doing this in 2028, I'll talk about it. I don't think Wizards of the Coast is going to be around in 2028. I think this is the end. I know that is an unpopular opinion. I know I'm probably going to get attacked for it, but I think Wizards of the Coast has dug their hole so deep that what Hasbro is doing right now is like, go crazy, kid. Do whatever you're going to do. Here's the rope. You either pull yourselves out of the dumpster fire you created, make us money, or you hang yourself and, you know what, we don't need you. At the end of the day, Hasbro doesn't need Wizards of the Coast to make D&D. They could sell it off. They could just have another company produce it. They could have third-party companies like Renegade Press make it. That June 2027 D&D 6X, that's hanging out there. I don't know what it means, but it's hanging out there. 40% chance it's a video game. 60% chance Hasbro has an insurance plan in place if the projections that they made for 2023 through 2027 in regards to Wizards of the Coast product do not match up. They've already got something in place, and they can just say, we don't need you, Wizards of the Coast. We can make D&D fine without you. And there's an entire planet out there of people who are going to continue to make third-party product for 5e, continue to make third-party OSR product, continue to be able to make product under the OGL using the D20 system without any fear, any fear of Wizards of the Coast coming after them and telling them they can't. So, yeah. Links down below to people talking about the situations. Grim Jim, of course. Dungeons and Diversity. Aaron. DM Bloodworth. Anybody else I can find who are smarter than me talking about it. Yeah. All right. That's it for today. If you appreciate this nonsense, let me know. If you don't appreciate this nonsense, let me know. If I've gotten you all excited, let's just take a minute to appreciate this picture of the Shire. Because right now, all I want to do is retire to the Shire, sit in the sun with my dog, maybe read a book, smoke some weed, drink some ale, and not think about this nonsense. Sadly, I don't have that luxury unless you support me. Buy my merch so I can retire. Talk to you later.